Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to the wide world of wrestling. My name's Simon Tackler. My co-host, as always, is the wonderful Neal Walters. Neal, how's it going?
What's up? How are we?
Oh, we are very good, and exciting news at the top of the show. We should get this up front. So you can now find us on the Ozcast network of podcasts. We're very happy to be working with the guys from Ozcast once again. They helped us out back in the day with Rock You Like a Hurricane Rana. They'll now be carrying the Wide World of Wrestling podcast on their network. And to take it even a step further, we now have the Ozcast Wrestling channel. You can subscribe to that wherever you find podcasts, and you'll get all of our shows. You'll get the Wide World of Wrestling. You'll get the back catalogue of Rock You Like a Hurricane Rana, which has some ridiculous interviews with WWE superstars, Australian wrestling talent, and you'll even get our new show, Reliving the War, hosted by us and Nims, old friend of the show. I don't know if he counts as a host anymore. He's like defected, but still sort of part of the team. Anyway, basically, all of our stuff is in the one place, the Ozcast Wrestling channel. You can subscribe to that, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, sick to not have to search over 15 different things to find us anymore. We're in one spot. We're at a happy home. We're not a split brand anymore. We're keeping it on the one channel, which is lovely.
Yeah, this is like when the NWO Black and White and the Wolfpack came back together and became NWO Elite. That's what's happened. We've brought it all back. It was all a swerve. This was the finger poke of doom, and now it's back. So, speaking of wars, we had the big Wednesday night wars, and that's got to be what we talk about. This is the first time where AEW and NXT ran super shows against each other.
It's so weird seeing something like this happen now. Like, it wasn't a pay-per-view, which is even more weird, the fact that the Great American Bash was a pay-per-view and they've just turned it into, this super show. I consider this to be the absolute start of the war. They haven't done something like this yet. There's been like titles on the line at the same time, but never a clear indication of both companies going, we need to do something here to take on what the other brand's doing. So, especially during lockdown, I'm all for this kind of stuff. Like, make it interesting, make it unique, because if it's the same stuff every single week, we start to get bored. We start to go, why am I watching the same kind of thing over and over again? Even if it's just a set change and a couple of titles on the line, fly me in on that for sure.
Yeah, and nobody should be shocked that the WWE thought, oh, okay, you're running a 2-week, mega event, we'll do the same. That's how we got the Royal Rumble. That's how we got Survivor Series. Yeah. Shady tactics from the WWE against the NWA and just running counter-programming. The first Royal Rumble was a TV special, and they put it on TV for free to stick it to the NWA running a pay-per-view. They said, all right, we'll give a free show away. And this is what's going to take this to the next level, because, if anyone's been keeping track of the ratings, they've sort of leveled off and plateaued for NXT and AEW for a while. They haven't really gone up. They haven't changed much. But if they're both going to start, swinging for the fences, we get better shows. Who cares who wins the ratings? I don't have stock in either company, but if it means we're going to get better shows because of the competition, that's what we want. Raw and Nitro... didn't really start going over the top like we started to see until a while into it, because they thought, oh, okay, you're really trying to win this. Well, we're going to counter it. This is perfect for the wrestling fans.
Yeah, look, the Monday Night Wars wasn't the ratings didn't start to go up until the wars really kicked in. So if this is what it's going to take, if it's going to be the proper Wednesday Night Wars where they're really trying to outdo each other, so far it's just been both shows running things as usual, with the pay-per-views as the defining factor of how good this brand actually is. But now, if we're going to go, okay, well, we have to get someone in that's of your Steve Austin kind of attitude to it and go, all right, well, maybe we look at an invasion kind of thing where someone does show up in an AEW arena, or if we start to go really, really hectic with this, that's where things get interesting. And that's where the ratings start to go up when you go, holy shit, have you seen what they're doing on insert brand here?
Yeah.
That's how things get interesting.
Yeah, and in a way, that's going to end up making these Wednesday shows more exciting than anything happening on Raw and SmackDown. Even though Raw and SmackDown are consistent, they've got the quote-unquote bigger stars. But if AEW and Nitro are just going to be AEW and NXT...
Nitro. Basically Nitro, but yeah.
Basically, they had a great American bash. Yeah, if they're going to just take risks like this and give away huge things on TV, it's awesome. I'm all for it. Yeah. We'll get into NXT first. I feel like, I don't know if it was just me. I felt like there was less to talk about coming out of it, so maybe we'll go through it first.
Yeah, look, I think where this went wrong, we're talking about not finishing on a high note, was there was no championships changing hands or even up for even in contention for changing hands. You only had a elimination match to determine a number one contender. It wasn't for anything. The main event was Io Shirai versus Sasha Banks, which is just a match for no reason whatsoever. We saw a little bit of, which we'll get into, obviously me jumping ahead, but we saw a little bit of something happen at the end, but there wasn't anything to keep me invested in from the start to the finish. I wasn't like, oh, this match is coming up, I'm going to see what happens here. Nothing was up for changing hands. And all we've got for next week too is there's 2 titles on the line, but it's in the one match. For AEW, you had 3 championship matches in the one night. And then next week, you've got another championship match, and they could add something else to it. I probably doubt it, but you had 3 on the first night, and you have to start big on the first night. It's like with WrestleMania. We had the first night ending with the Undertaker match, which is some people's favorite match of WrestleMania. So you have to go big straight away. So with NXT, I think that was the main problem straight away. You go, I don't have any investment into this as much as I did with AEW.
Yeah. Well, we'll start from the start and get to that, because I think you're right. So the first match that kicked things off did have something at stake. It was for the number one contender for the women's championship. Mia Yim, Tegan Nox, Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai. It was an elimination match. It was pretty good. I think it felt long because it had commercial breaks. I think an elimination match with ads feels really long.
Well, it was 20 minutes 37, and I'm guessing that's without ads.
That's a long match.
That's a long time for a fatal. And I understand it's a fatal 4-way, so you have to give them, it's only 5 minutes per elimination, but that's still a very long time for an opening match, which is just for a number one contender match. That's it. If it was a title, 20 minutes, no worries.
Like a main event, yeah. I didn't mind this match. I thought it was good at the end when it was down to Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai. They've got great chemistry. Yeah. I love that weird street fight they had a while ago. They had a cage match. That was pretty good. They've wrestled so much. It's not like that was anything new. I felt like when it was the 4 of them and the 3 of them, it was,
You take away the cage, you take away War Games, and 20 minutes. Like you look at AEW's longest match of the night, 15 minutes. And that was for the AEW World Tag Team Championship. So that was, again, you've got 4 people in it, all going hard, and that didn't feel like a long enough, like a waste of time, basically. This was 20 minutes of something that they could have done in 10.
Yeah. Yeah, and, well, Tegan Nox is now the number one contender, which is confusing. I know people say, oh, bad guys and good guys don't exist, everything's shades of grey. But it feels like Io Shirai is a face again, and Tegan Nox is a face, so I don't know how they're going to build that up. Are we going to think it's a dream match? I don't know. But, yeah that wasn't a match I ever thought, oh, that's what I'm hanging for. There's no story. But
no, and I think that in itself screams that there has to be a title change or something is going to happen in between those two going head-to-head, because Tegan Nox and Io Shirai at the moment can't go head-to-head because it's face versus face, and doesn't make a huge amount of sense. So I think, you'll see someone. My money goes on Tegan Nox goes heel, and starts doing something naughty because it doesn't make much sense at the moment.
Yeah. The next match I want to talk about, Oni Lorcan versus Timothy Thatcher. I don't know. I don't know. I get it. I just couldn't get into it. Like, I know people love this stuff. I'm all for hard-hitting matches too, strong style or the old ROH. Oh, my God, they're actually hitting each other type stuff and slowed down submission stuff. Daniel Bryan's one of my favorite wrestlers ever, including his old work. But I don't know, a match like this with no build and with characters who, we don't really know yet, especially Oni Lorcan. He's been on TV forever. He tweets in all caps. That's all he does. That's all I know about
That's
him.
a big problem. That's a big problem. Second up to a 20-minute match. Second up after a long match it has to be under 10 minutes. Has to be. You can't go over 10 minutes after a 20-minute match, and then expect people to hold their attention to something like this. It just felt long, and I may or may not have skipped through a fair bit of this because I was just like, I just don't see value in this whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I like what they're doing with Timothy Thatcher. I guess they're building up his character and his background. Like, he's sort of a Stu Hart, will torture his, trainees type thing, which is very on the nose considering everything that's been happening lately. But they're continuing with it. He's an interesting guy. But yeah, Oni Lorcan, great in the ring. Seems like he's kind of funny with the way he tweets, but it doesn't all come together on TV. And that's where it should. Like, what's your character on TV? I don't care how funny you are on social media. That has to translate. Yeah, he's in a tag team with Danny Burch, but they never really win. This was a tough one to have on a pay-per-view-ish event.
Yeah, and if you're going to call it the Great American Bash, you have to treat it like a pay-per-view. You can't just go, this is a normal NXT match, because you're going to get people tuning in that don't watch NXT every week. So if you're going to put on a match that could be on a very base level NXT card, it's got to be something like, I would have loved to see this as a submission match. If you're going to do it like that, do a submission match, because then you have a reason for these guys fighting in that kind of way, rather than let's just drag this out for a long period of time.
Well, from one extreme to the other, though, from like straight up wrestling to just sports entertainment, Rhea Ripley versus Aaliyah and Robert Stone. I've got to say, I didn't mind this at all in a fun way. Didn't need an ad break. Again, this felt a bit longer than it should have been. But Rhea Ripley just going straight up Hulk Hogan and beating the crap out of like an opponent and their manager was kind of fun to see. Like,
she's huge. Like having them both submit at the end, that was fantastic. Rhea's awesome.
Yeah, this was good to see. She didn't win the triple threat at In Your House. This was just a fun way for her to beat some people up. Like I said, I would have loved to have seen her join the Robert Stone brand and then break free, but whatever. This was just a bit of fun.
What do you do with Rhea now? Where does she go?
I don't know. Well, unless she gets involved with Io Shirai, maybe Tegan Nox doesn't use her number one contendership until Rhea Ripley is the champion. I don't know. We'll see. Rhea Ripley might not even be long for NXT. That could be part of it too. They've taken her out of the title picture, given her the big just showcase match like this to then just move her on.
I think now is the exact time she needs to make the jump to SmackDown, because where you fit her in now is so important. You got to look at the moment who's on SmackDown and Raw in the women's departments. Then it's there's been people that have jumped over from NXT that just no longer exist, that have just disappeared. So if Rhea's happy to work every week, which it looks like she is, I'd say put her on one of Raw or SmackDown, because now's the time you could just elevate her massively. And why not?
Well, Raw is hers for the taking, considering, as you mentioned, Shayna Baszler, Bianca Belair aren't really on TV, and they've always been positioned as these, dominant, sort of overpowering athletes in the women's division. They can do that with Rhea Ripley, and then when they're ready to come back to, she's got those matchups. But I think Raw is the place to go, and Charlotte is out for a little bit, getting surgery. So maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's why she isn't in a high stakes story right now.
Yeah, see, I was reading yesterday that Becky wanted to drop the title to Shayna Baszler, and Vince didn't want a bar of it.
Yeah.
So it was like, why do all of that Elimination Chamber stuff? Why have this massive build-up to not give it to Shayna? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
One of those things. Maybe Vince was like, all right, we'll do that part of it. If that doesn't win me over, nah. And I guess that wasn't enough for him.
Yeah, shit. I think I was there that night and the crowd response was not good for Shayna.
Yeah, okay,
Not
that's
good.
right. You were at that pay-per-view before we were forced to never travel and never go into crowds again. That's crazy that you were at the last crowded pay-per-view.
Pretty much the last crowded, like, decent event that they had, really. Like, I think there was a couple of Raws and then that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was they booed the shit out of her. Like, it was, I think they must have muted the mics a little bit because I've watched it back since, and that they really let her have it, because there was, for some reason, there was long periods of time between where she'd eliminate someone. There was like a minute between eliminating someone and then someone coming out of the pod. So she was just kind of standing there doing her thing. I'm sure with commentary over the top, it would have looked interesting, but there's no commentary at a live event. So it was literally, everyone was just standing there going, what's she doing? Why isn't she busting? Like, she could have like kicked through the door, ripped people out, like done all that kind of stuff. And she kind of looks silly. And I think that's what Vince would have heard at the event, is just people booing her and going, we can't give this person the title.
So it wasn't the right type of booze, you think? It was more like, we're bored.
No, it was, everyone was bored of their mind going, this isn't, like, they set everyone up in there to be able to take her on, and they gave a lot of people a chance that probably wouldn't have got that chance, and she just walked through them. It was the Brock Lesnar booze, where people just go, we're over this already. So can you have two Brock Lesnars basically on a male and female standard? Would that work?
I guess not.
Well, they haven't had a go, so we'll probably never find out.
They gave up on that one. Up next, and it's weird that we're, not being fully positive about NXT, because numbers-wise, again, they won the ratings, if you care about that sort of thing. But to me, this match, surely if people were flipping back and forth, this match was the one where they were like, nah, I'm done with this. I couldn't get into this at all. The strap match, Roderick Strong and Dexter Lumis. This was too long. I know we keep saying it about these NXT matches. This one just
16 minutes
with an ad that made it go
a strap
forever.
Match,
yeah,
which is probably pushes it out to 20 minutes. Like, for a strap match, strap matches are not this long. Like, yeah, even
he can do it. Eddie and JBL is, like so many people's one of their favorite matches. Strap matches are doable when, you're bleeding and killing each other. I guess that was a different time, but this just didn't even feel like a strap match.
The last one was The Fiend and Seth Rollins, wasn't it?
The Fiend and Daniel Bryan.
Sorry.
And they had a good match, really good.
That was a great match, because they used the strap properly. You look like he was going to actually kill him at a point. You're like, well, this is brilliant. But I thought Dexter here, this is where you could have turned him full psycho and like strung him up by something, or like really, really like beaten the crap out of Roderick Strong. But it just felt like a technical kind of longish, weird match. And the whole time I was sitting there going, when's something going to happen here?
Yeah.
And it just didn't the whole time. And then it finished and I was like, okay, that's extremely anticlimactic.
Yeah, I kind of like Dexter Lumis as a character. I sort of like some of the stuff he did in TNA as well. I think in the ring, it feels like they're going for sort of an old school Undertaker thing where he moves very slow and only is explosive every now and then. And it's all about stalking. I don't know if that works anymore. I don't like it's worth a shot, but again, if you're not 7 foot, does it work? If you're not a supernatural character, it doesn't work. Like, Dexter Lumis is buff and big, but he's not overpowered like The Undertaker's just a dude.
They need to have another go at him, try something else, or like really try and push his character to another level, because it's there, it's just not there. So hopefully they have another go at it.
Yeah. And up next, it wasn't a match, but we'll give it a mention. We had Santos Escobar and his luchador mates getting attacked by Breezango and Drake Maverick. This was good to build a 6-man tag. I kind of like that guy, Santos Escobar. Cuts a good promo. I think he'll go far. I really didn't know he could speak the way he does. That'll make a big difference when he finally makes it to the main roster.
Yeah, absolutely. It was cool, and the worst part about that was that whole section was more interesting than the strap match.
Yeah, it was. There was a bit of excitement with it. It was good. I like what they're doing with those guys. Up next, the main event, you mentioned it, Io Shirai, Sasha Banks. Nothing on the line, but it was sort of billed as a bit of a dream match. And, hey, it was a draw. You can't argue with that. People wanted to see it. I liked the match. I thought it was good. Sometimes you forget how good Sasha Banks is, because she's been doing tag stuff. She doesn't wrestle as often on TV in these kind of matches. But, yeah, this was good. It wasn't match of the year. It wasn't, it was a show stealer by default, but it wasn't anything, that you put on your best of end of the year list or anything.
I thought that the match was more about Bayley, which kind of ruined it for me. I would have liked to have seen Sasha Banks one-on-one, really, with Io Shirai. Bayley she's just overpowering at the moment with this character. And it's like, I understand what they're doing, but this could have been a great match for Io Shirai if it wasn't for Bayley. And it felt like the whole time they were focusing on Bayley and kept cutting to her and kept, she obviously interfered with the match at the end. But it was just like, why not just show off how good Sasha Banks is? And that's it. Why not keep it there?
Yeah, instead of building on, when is she going to cheat and all that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as you said, at the end, we did see Asuka get involved, so I guess they'll build to a tag match. Maybe that's on night 2.
Yeah. Io Shirai and, that'd be sick. And put the titles up and they lose them there. Perfect.
And then Asuka has 2 belts?
Yeah, Asuka 2 belts. She just makes fun of Bayley then. She just keeps calling herself those straps. That would be doing a dance and having 2 belts. I'd love that. That would be great.
That's a way to do it, to sort of get the belts off, just one person having every belt. Because then Sasha can take the Raw Women's title from Asuka. Then you've got Io and Asuka as the tag champs. You've got Sasha as the Raw champ. You've got Bayley as the SmackDown champ. You completely separate everything again.
Yep, that'd be huge. And then you could have at SummerSlam, you'd have Bayley versus Sasha Banks for both titles for some reason.
Yeah. Oh, they're going to get to that eventually, and that's going to be great.
Yeah.
Maybe you wait till Mania. Wait till you have a crowd, or, wishful thinking.
You have to have a crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the rumors are they want
judging
crowds
by how
soon,
they're going, there'll be crowds next week. They're just saying, yep, we're going to do this. It's God, it's good shit. We're going to have crowds. It's hang on. It's getting worse. It's getting way worse.
It's not getting better.
No. Florida's getting worse, but they had 16,000 cases. I know we don't really talk about it. They're 16,000 cases the other day.
Yeah.
So it's not getting better.
Yeah.
If anything, they're going to have to go, we can't even do what we're doing now.
Yeah. Well, that's where both of these shows are happening. It's what makes it even weirder.
Yep.
Yeah. And
lucky Florida's a weird place to live, weird place to be and weird place to live. And, they're just saying, yep, you guys can do whatever you want. They're not even testing people. They're not even doing anything. So fun.
Yeah. Well, strange times. Flipping over the channel to AEW Fyter Fest Night 1. To me, by default, AEW just looks better on TV because of the arena they have. I think Daly's Place is a great venue. I know I've heard some people say, the sound's not great. I think it sounds good. You can tell there's a crowd there. It sounds good. They can do pyro. Pyro at the start of the show makes a difference. Everything does. I thought AEW was the better show.
Significantly better to me.
Yeah.
Significantly.
Chris Jericho on commentary again.
I firmly believe that Chris Jericho should transition from not being on TV to just be on commentary, because he's really good.
Yeah.
And his commentary now is getting better than his matches, because everybody else in AEW is brilliant. Like, all of them know what they're doing. They're great wrestlers. I think him versus Orange Cassidy next week is really good, because that's the kind of person he can fight and look extremely powerful. And it'll just be an interesting match just because. We'll talk about that more, but I get jumping ahead. But yeah, him on commentary makes JR look pretty rough.
But that's fine. Rough. That's fine. You know, like, he's playing a different role. I actually, when I saw they were having the 4 commentators through the show, I thought, oh, this is going to be a mess. I didn't even realize that was that many people. I thought they handled it well. Each person just jumped in when it was appropriate for them. There wasn't too much arguing. And Jericho doesn't go full heel commentator in that he doesn't just cut off the other guys and say, oh, you're an idiot, or, you know, try and be too overbearing. And he still gives some logic while commentating. It's a tough balance. I think he's as good as whoever you think the best is, whether it's Ventura or Bobby Heenan. I think Jericho is going to be up there very soon.
I think he already is. And especially, like, you look at during the Cody versus Jake Hager match, he wasn't just rooting for Jake Hager the whole time. If Cody did it well, he'd comment on how good it was. Like, so he's taking his bias out of it. And it's, you know, nearly every match had someone in the inner circle in it, or very close to. So it could have just been really biased the whole time. But the way he commentates, man, is so good. It makes it so interesting. You're like, this is definitely how it needs to be going forward, for sure.
Yeah. And I thought the commentary on this show blew away what they did on NXT. And NXT, like, it's hard for them. They're not all doing it in person. That must be very tricky. But yeah, no, this just felt more lively. The first match, though, of Fyter Fest, MJF and Wardlow versus Jurassic Express, Luchasaurus, and Jungle Boy. This was my match of the night across both shows. This was perfect. This was what AEW sort of like in our heads was going to be, sort of how it was sold. It was like classic wrestling mixed with new age wrestling and blah, blah, blah. This felt like an old school tag match with characters and stories between everyone, as well as between the partners. And they were also doing all this modern shit with dives and Hurricane Ranas and whatever else. This was perfect. These guys are all very good.
MJF is the best heel across all of the brands.
Oh, MJF is the man. Yeah, he's so good.
He's the first for a long time where he is the perfect heel of not being annoying. He's just hateful. You just go, everything this dude says is just so terrible. And you're like, bang on though. Yeah. He's like, he says the right things that are the right amount of funny and interesting and just full of hate that you're like, yeah, that's what a heel is. Everybody else should just take an absolute page out of MJF's book, because if you see so many other heels, there's not people that I'm naming specifically, but he wears a crown on his head, where you just go, you're just, I'm not interested in what you're going to say, because it's the same thing over and over again. It sounds like complaining and whinging, and you're like, there's only so much of that you can kind of take in before you start to get bored with it. But MJF is constantly evolving, and there's always something new about his character. Every single time you watch him, you don't know what you're going to get. But every single time you watch some of the other heroes, you know exactly what you're going to get. And that's where it's not interesting.
Yeah, that's the difference. You look forward to his promos the same way you would with a promo from The Rock or Austin or Roddy Piper or, you know, John Cena in his prime or whatever. You're like, okay, the promo is a big part because I don't know what crazy shit he's going to say. And it's going to be just as fun as the match. And underrated thing, cut promos before matches. And I love that MJF did that here. That's sort of an old school thing. It used to happen on Raw and Nitro all the time. It doesn't as often, unless it's the old, I've interrupted your promo, and now another guy has, and now it's a tag match. No, this is a match with a promo at the start of it. It's good. Build it up. One last extra bit of hype. And, man, Jungle Boy, for some reason, I always forget how much he can do. You know, there's something about him. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's pretty good. He's not the best. But then he's in a match like this, and you're like, damn, he can do way more than you think. I don't know why.
Yeah, and especially, like, he looks short. He's 5'10",
Okay.
which isn't that short. It's like, I think you'd be about 5'10", wouldn't you?
I'm like 6'1".
Oh, you really? We're the same height? Cool.
Yeah.
I forget, I haven't seen you for like 6 months, so it makes sense.
I'll take Jungle Boy to the woodshed.
Yeah, but even 5'10" isn't that short.
No, not at all.
He just looks tiny compared to everybody else. And I think that's the interesting thing. You're putting him next to Luchasaurus, who's like, what, he'd be 6'6",
Yeah,
6'5",
surely.
6'6",
Pretty
something
huge.
like that.
Yeah.
So Jungle Boy obviously looks really small, but I think that's the best thing about him is he can do so much, and it makes it more interesting, and you forget about what he can do. So I love seeing him involved in these kind of matches, and he doesn't always get the win, even though they did get the win in this kind of in this setup. But when he does, you're just rooting for him. He's a proper underdog.
Yeah. And MJF has a little bit of that too, because he, relies so much on the character, the presentation, the promos. You sort of forget that this is a really athletic young guy, and he, puts that into his matches. He'll do a flip or he'll do something super athletic, and it always takes you by surprise when MJF does it. And you're like, God damn, he doesn't overdo it because he doesn't have to. To me, the spot of the match, they were all down. The two smaller guys do nip-ups. The two big guys do nip-ups. The two big guys knock themselves out. And then somehow it led to Jungle Boy jumping off the backs of the two big guys and then doing a Canadian Destroyer to MJF. That was ridiculous. Like, that was so good. I don't know, you could say, that, overly choreographed stuff. No, that was perfect because it's not anything
it's just
you
well
say.
thought out. It's well thought out wrestling, which is that's lacking. And that's what the whole of... Sorry to talk shit on him, but that whole of the NXT felt not thought out and not interesting to me. Everything on this AEW card, it was kind of well thought out. The storylines were great. The matches were great. It just had a really old school kind of wrestling feel to it, which is exactly what we need. And it's what we're after. Don't have to just build to gimmicks. You can make things interesting. And this was just a tag match.
Yeah.
There was nothing on the line.
But we know their history. We know the relationships between the characters, and that's why we cared. That's why it was good. Can't say enough good things about this match. Watch it if you hadn't. This was great. Up next, Hikaru Shida versus Penelope Ford. Penelope Ford hasn't had too many of these longer matches on Dynamite. I know she's had some on Dark. I don't watch Dark. It's too many bloody wrestling shows. This was great. This was very good. Better than I expected. Penelope Ford is going to be a superstar. She's sort of the maybe the underrated part of AEW's women's division. She's been a manager most of her run there, but if she's going to be a character and a performer, and she's already this good, she's going to be their big star eventually. And Hikaru Shida is great. But what a match!
Yeah, she's fantastic. This is a lot better than what I thought it'd be. For starters, I wasn't thinking much of this leading up to it, but she's shown that she can take on someone like Nyla Rose and win. I think that she doesn't lose this for upwards of until there's a big crowd back, and then who the hell do you put it on after that? To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to take this off her anytime soon, and she's brilliant. Yeah,
and this might be the feud that keeps looping back for the women's division, though. Penelope Ford keeps getting better, and eventually wins it down the line. But what an unexpected surprise this was. Chris Jericho did a great job on commentary in this match too, just putting over how great it was. And this was, one of the best matches he's ever seen on AEW, and how great Penelope Ford was. And that went a long way too. That makes a difference,
Yeah. I was all in.
Up next, another championship match. I didn't know what to expect, because I feel like this is a match that 10 years ago, it probably happened on Superstars and nobody cared, when it would have been, Cody Rhodes versus Jack Swagger. But now it's Cody versus Jake Hager for the NXT TNT Championship.
Close.
Yeah, TNT Championship. Damn, this was good. Another, sort of old school, over-the-top Cody match with interference and swerves and referees and blah, blah, blah. That's what Cody does. He does old school main events, and this was a good one.
Yeah, the ending was obviously the biggest thing. It feels like they've done something like this recently, where someone tapped and was pinned at the same time. But yeah, I think it was great because Hager's just going to be this, again, you could keep this going on for ages, Cody and Hager. Hager's missus is just annoying as hell too, isn't she? Like
Right.
she's great, but yeah, she's a proper like female heel before even getting in the ring or anything. So, yeah, she's one to look out for. But yeah, I think this could stretch on for quite a while. And again, it was 15 minutes, but it didn't feel like 15 minutes. It felt interesting the whole time, and again, well thought out.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's on purpose, but I get a bit of a Donald Trump, Melania Trump vibe from
Yeah.
Jake and his wife.
I think
don't
it's
know.
on purpose.
Yeah, it sort of feels that way.
Definitely on purpose.
Yeah, the way
Cody is the American hero versus Hager, who's obviously like the Southern American hero. So it's, two very different things.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good. Really interesting, though. You would have thought Cody and Lance Archer was going to be the feud that would be more than one match. That was one and done. That was really weird. That felt like such a big thing. Whereas this Hager one is going to become a longer. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was weird.
Yeah,
is it over for Lance Archer?
Yeah. I think Hager gets his rematch. Possibly next week maybe. But yeah, Lance Archer's an interesting one because you go, well, hang on, all he wanted was the TNT championship, doesn't get it once, and then see you later. Like he was presented as this huge, powerful dude that Jake the Snake is teaming up with, and then he's taking on Joey Janela next week. You're like, is that it? Like,
yeah,
Joey Janela.
And they were so focused on Cody. All of Jake's promos were like, Cody, we're taking your piece of the pie. They had one shot, and he was like, nah, it's all right. You keep the pie. It's all good. Like, it's weird.
I think the problem with Lance Archer, he's too big. I think you need him. You need him in a tag setup, maybe with like against Luchasaurus or someone like that, where they might actually get a decent match because he's going to destroy Joey Janela next week. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, for sure.
But maybe you need to have one-on-one versus Luchasaurus or someone where you're actually going to get a decent match. You need, it's when Kane came in, you didn't just have Kane versus Mankind for ages. Or actually, no, sorry, you did. You wouldn't have had Kane versus Shane McMahon or someone like that over and over and over again. You have to have him against big dudes like The Undertaker or Big Show or someone like that to make it look interesting. So I think Lance Archer can't just have small dude after small dude thrown in front of him. It has to be bigger guys, maybe Brody Lee or someone like that.
Yeah, well, he's sort of fallen into that same boat too. You came in, you wanted this title, and you gave up after one shot.
Yeah, it's something that I think AEW needs to work on a little bit is their long-term storytelling. They're great with the short-term stuff. They're great between TV to pay-per-view, but yeah, there is a big difference between TV to pay-per-view and then 3 pay-per-views from now. They did it really well with Cody versus MJF, but again, we've just forgotten that now.
Yeah, that feels like a lifetime ago.
It's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
MJF and Cody feels like it could still be going. Cody never really got his revenge on him. They just kind of left it and said, okay, we'll move on. Obviously, pretty soon we're going to get Cody versus MJF for the TNT title, I hope. But again, that might be something, the whole reason for that could be maybe we're saving that for crowds.
Yeah, and that's fair too. Like, there are so many variables because of what's going on. We have to take that into account. The next match was the only one on Fyter Fest that I sort of tuned out to because I watched NXT then AEW, and I'm glad I did because it was, the show got better. But this match, my focus sort of left a bit. Private Party versus Santana and Ortiz. It was good, but I couldn't get into it.
Private Party, I still am expecting them to be like, we want the smoke. I think they're a different. I think they're on a different brand all the time. I'm always surprised when I see Private Party on AEW and not on Raw.
It's a tricky one. I've heard people say, nah, it's not the same. Can't say it's the same gimmick.
It's exactly the same thing.
No, it's not.
It's exactly the same thing. I think it's exactly the same thing. It's so close.
Why is that? Because they drink out of cups? Like, there are so many similarities. And people are like, it's not the same. Yes, it is.
Yeah, you look at, it's the same thing. I'm sorry. Like, I don't understand how people are saying it's not the same thing. If they're so close to it, they, at some point, I reckon did Private Party have the velvet rope thing?
They did, yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's happened on Raw too.
With
like there's been like a security guard or something.
Oh, that might be MVP's VIP lounge.
No. I'm pretty sure it's happened.
For the Street Profits?
There's been like a party or something and they couldn't.
Oh, they've both definitely done the celebration in the crowd with the cups though.
Yeah.
Both teams have done that. Both teams have done that. There are definitely similarities.
I think it's the first brand to blink and say, okay, we're going to stop doing this. Because I think they're both holding on at the moment and going, nope, different things. Totally different. Okay,
I think it's like the old, Road Warriors and Demolition thing. You can say, they're the same, but both forever have always been like, nah, it's different. It's barely.
Yeah. It's like Goldberg and Austin really at their prime. They were like, Goldberg was modeled after what Stone Cold was kind of doing.
In terms of the look, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and saying that, and look, Private Party is the wrestling style and such a different, and they don't do everything the same, but yeah, it was skippable for me.
I like Santana and Ortiz a lot, and I think they're really good characters. I'm always shocked at how good they are in the Inner Circle vignettes. But yeah, I don't know. This match just felt like a match. This was the only one that felt like a match for no reason.
I think the Inner Circle, Santana and Ortiz are better when they're in the Inner Circle.
Yeah.
I don't like them as much when it's just those two or in their solos at all. I think that's why I was a little bit disinterested.
And then finally, another tag match, 3 tag matches on the show, but this was the big one for the titles, Kenny Omega and Adam Page versus Best Friends. This might be the best friends match I've seen.
Yeah, again, I'm not massively into the Best Friends. I think there's too many Chuck Taylor jokes every time they fight.
And give the people what they want and them hugging. Like, it is the same every match. I think Trent is amazing. I thought he was great back when he was a loser in WWE. I think he's a missed opportunity. But Chuck Taylor, I don't get it. This was a good match, but I normally don't get it.
Yeah, it was very obvious who was going to win here. There was no way that Best Friends were going to walk away with the tag titles. I'm interested to see where the hell Omega and Page go from this because, it does look like there's always going to be a split. But yeah, you're just like, well, what am I looking for here? What am I going to get out of it?
Well, this is a long-term story they've been building for a while, with Page and Omega. I think it's going somewhere. I think we might see it blow up in a few weeks because what's interesting, next week is Fyter Fest Night 2, but then the week after is Fight for the Fallen. So AEW is basically doing 3 super shows in a row.
Oh, yeah, and next week you've got Omega and Page versus Private Party.
That should be good. That should be very good.
It should be, but hang on, you're having night 1 with headlined by Omega and Page, and night 2 headlined by Omega and Page.
Then surely something has to happen.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're like, and Matt Hardy's just a general manager for people now,
which is weird.
Matt Hardy a match too.
Well, wasn't he friends with the Elite though?
Yeah, and now he's not. He's with the Private Party. So you're like, well, what's happening here?
Yeah. It's all a big mishmash. And we also saw FTR and the Young Bucks get involved. I just want to say with FTR, people were pointing out that I get their names mixed up, but I believe it was Dax Harwood. He was drinking a beer while chewing gum, and a few people were like, oh, that's gross. Hey, I've done that before. It's fine. Gives beer a different flavor.
That's disgusting. No, are you serious?
Different flavor. If you're drinking a crap beer and you've got some gum, sometimes you're like, I'll keep it in.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a different story. If you're drinking a crap beer and you put it with gum, it's still going to taste crap. But if you're drinking a nice beer and you have a nice piece,
never.
You're
going to wreck both.
Yeah, but a VB and have a bit of chewy, no one cares. But if you're having a nice Crownie or something, that's a whole completely different story.
Yeah, and you don't want a bad beer ruining your good gum either. But no, I
That's a whole different podcast. A beer and gum podcast.
Coming soon to the Ozcast network. We'll pitch that next. Anyway, that was just a bit of fun. And then the Young Bucks, I wanted to point out something. Did you notice Nick Jackson's T-shirt?
I did. Yeah.
I had to pause it because I was like, am I reading that right? What's he wearing? It had the prayer hands wearing the Young Bucks tassels and it said Christian AF. Okay.
Yeah. They're selling it. You can buy that shirt.
I'd check too. It's on Pro Wrestling Tees. Yep, the AEW store.
And I think CM Punk retweeted him the other day and said, "Hey, that's my thing." It's like with the hands, thing. Yeah, that's great.
That's great.
But, yeah. It's an interesting little angle to take. But hey,
they're leaning into it.
It sells a shirt.
That's it. Hey, Shawn Michaels sold plenty of religious T-shirts in his last WWE run. Young Bucks are leaning into it.
Good on them.
Yep, make some money. I don't think I'm going to buy that shirt, but good on you. So now we lead to the big 8-man tag as well, with the Young Bucks teaming up with FTR and blah, blah, blah. So this is all about the tag division for the next few weeks. As in, it's
given up.
No, they're going to turn on each other. You got the Lucha Brothers, you got Butcher and Blade. It's all to set up this ongoing feud with the Young Bucks and FTR. So again, they're focusing long-term with this tag division, certain guys in it. But yeah, we'll see if this was the right move. It's going to be really interesting. If NXT's won the ratings 2 weeks in a row now for, I think, the first time. If they win the next 2 weeks, what does that say about FTR's star power? Who are sort of focused as, the main story.
Man, I really do hope that they do win. Because FTR, and it'd be, man, imagine Vince and everyone after you left, let the Revival go. They drop in and just dominate in AEW. That'd be amazing. But that's going to be a long-term one. Obviously, FTR versus the Young Bucks is going to have to be in front of a crowd. You can't have that as a normal kind of thing. It's huge.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening at Fight for the Fallen either. That's not happening in 2 weeks. They're going to drag this out, and that could headline a pay-per-view.
Absolutely. It's something everyone's wanted to see for so long, and just doing that in front of a small crowd would be such a disservice to who they all are. So, we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, and then just finally, the other thing to come out of the show, it's been postponed. Brian Cage and Jon Moxley will take place in 2 weeks at Fight for the Fallen. Obviously, Jon Moxley's quarantined with Renee Young, and Taz took a shot at that on commentary, during his promo. Man, if anyone didn't realize this is how good Taz is on the mic, I'm glad you're getting to see it on AEW. There's more to Taz than just his commentary.
But he's looking more and more like a thumb every single time he's on TV. He's just becoming more looks like someone's a 3-year-old's drawn him on a page, and he's very 2-dimensional. Just looks like a big thumb.
Yeah.
He's got to do something about that. If he's going to be on TV every week, less of a thumb is my feedback for good old Taz.
I'm not saying anything bad about Taz. He'll come after us. He seems like that kind of guy.
Choke us out for sure.
Yeah. I don't care how long he's been retired. He seems like a scary guy.
Absolutely. Thumbs are scary.
Yeah, he'll thumb wrestle us. There you go. On that note, we'll wrap things up. It was an interesting night of big-time wrestling. It was great. It gave us a lot to talk about, and I guess we're going to do the same thing next week.
Yeah. Hopefully it's, I think, I'm guessing it was all filmed in the one kind of session, so we won't see a dramatic change. But look, NXT know what they need to do now. And AEW just need to keep doing what they're doing. So hopefully we see some changes and some better matches on the NXT half. But we've only got 3 matches announced for next week so far for NXT. So hopefully there'll be a bunch more stuff announced pretty soon, because 3 matches ain't enough.
Yeah, although that big one, Keith Lee, Adam Cole, that's going to be a big main event.
Oh, that should be,
That might win NXT the war again.
Yeah, that has a potential to be match of the year. So if it is that good, I'm just begging for a non-screwy finish, because if this is a screwy finish and both of those guys walk out with one of those titles, I will be unbelievably pissed off.
Yeah,
the title of next week's show is Neal's pissed off. You know what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got to end it properly. You can't hype it up the way they have and then not blow it off, because it's not a real takeover. Yeah, it's going to be huge.
Yep.
Yeah. So on that note, we'll wrap things up. We're going to be back next week with the Wide World of Wrestling. Of course, as we said at the top of the show, you can subscribe now on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Just search for the Wide World of Wrestling. You can also find us on the Ozcast Wrestling channel, part of the Ozcast network. You'll get all of our wrestling shows there, including next week's episode of Reliving the War. There'll be another episode out with myself and Nims and Neal. You're going to be joining us as well as we take a look at Bash at the Beach 96. So you're going to get 2 shows next week. Subscribe wherever you find podcasts. And Neal, catch you then.
See ya.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.